Today, we're going to talk about healing our inner girl child. When I started my inner child work, I did start with a therapist. And while I recognize that a lot of people don't have the funds to pay for therapists, I know that therapy is expensive. I do want to say that if you go online and look up inner child work, you will find a lot of resources and tips from licensed professionals. But as I was saying, I did start with a therapist, and I remember that I cried a lot. We did a lot of visualization exercises. There were times when I had to revisit my childhood home and I had to revisit some very painful memories. And it was tough and it was difficult. And I know that my therapist really tried for me because he had to really walk me through those difficult memories. But after I released each one, after I went through each one and I revisited, I found that I felt better. Okay, there's something about vocalizing and speaking out loud the things that were done to you that actually helps you with the healing process. Does it heal everything completely? Of course not. But something about getting it out just helps you with the burden and the load. Something else we did in therapy, in my therapy sessions rather, was that I acknowledged all the repressed feelings and thoughts that I had growing up. Now, I actually advocated for myself a lot. There were many times when I would look my abusive parents in the eye and I would tell her, the things that you're doing to me is very wrong, it's very sick, it's very sadistic. There were many times where I stood up for myself and I'm like, I didn't do this, I don't know why you're lying on my name. There were many times my abusive parents would accuse me of doing things. She lied to my dad that she saw me kissing a boy one time and the beating that I chopped. And the crazy thing is that it wasn't even true. There were times where she would accuse me of taking things out of her bag and I'm like, I didn't take anything out of your bag. And she would beat me and try to force me to confess. So when I say that I grew up with a sadistic parent, I know the reason why I'm using that word. One time she accused me of taking something from her bag. I said I didn't do it. She didn't believe me and she picked up a shower curtain rod and she beat me until the rod actually bent. So I had to really reconcile myself with the fact that young me had to endure all of that beating, all of the verbal abuse. Why? Because my abusive parent had issues, hated herself, and decided that she wasn't going to break the cycle and instead she was going to traumatize her family. The other thing that I had to do in therapy was radically accept that my abusers abused me not because I did something wrong, but because they had issues. Okay, they still have those issues till date, but thankfully I've cut them off. They're no longer in my life, so I don't have to be exposed to their bad behavior and their degenerate behavior anymore. However, when I was growing up, obviously I was a dependent, I was young, I'm a child, I didn't have a lot of options. The only thing I had to do was endure and survive. Okay, but now as an adult, as a 34-year-old woman, I know that I did not do anything to deserve the abuse, and saying that out loud, accepting it in therapy, accepting it on my own, even outside of my therapy sessions, really helped with speeding up my healing process. As a young Nigerian woman, I cannot tell you how many people, both adults, my peers, even people younger than me, who tried to convince me that I must have done something to deserve the way my abusive parent treated me. Not a single person could say to me, I don't think that your parent likes you. I actually think that your parent hates you because the way they're treating you does not make any sense. So I had to grow up with this mindset that what I was experiencing was love, even though deep down I knew that it wasn't love. I know that you cannot love somebody and punch them in the face. I know that you cannot love somebody and call them a prostitute for just existing and being a young girl. I know you cannot love someone and pick up a flask and beat their head repeatedly until it cracks open and it actually starts to bleed. Not only did I experience physical violence, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, I also witnessed my abusive parent do very terrible things to my dad. And even though I spoke up, again, I still ran into the same issues. That's just how a marriage is. That's just how it's supposed to be. Meanwhile, I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is actually not normal. Something else that helped me heal my inner child was I stopped speaking negatively about myself and to myself. There are certain names I don't call myself. There are certain ways that I don't speak to myself. I don't even speak to other people that way. So why would I speak to myself that way? This also means that if somebody speaks to me in a way that I feel like is disrespectful, I would check them. It is so much easier to check someone for disrespecting you when your inner child is healed. Because when you're still dealing with a bruised and broken and wounded inner child, when someone disrespects you, your first thought will be, let me not say anything so that I can keep the peace and not rock the boat. I'm gonna rock the motherfucking boat, best believe. Another thing that helped me heal my inner child was that I stopped listening to the voices of my abusers. Like I said, they are no longer in my life. I even disowned my degenerate male sibling. That's how serious I was about my healing. However, when they were still in my life, when I was still forming good daughter, good sister, let's make it work, let's keep the family together, those voices were in my head. So the critical voices, the mean voices, the sadistic voices, the evil voices, those voices didn't belong to me. They didn't even belong to my friends. They belonged to my abusive family members. So when I did the hard cutoff and I went no contact, immediately those voices went silent. Like I don't hear them anymore. And because I don't hear those voices anymore, I can now hear my voice. And my voice is actually very sweet and kind and loving. Another thing that helped me heal my inner child was leaving Christianity and leaving organized religion, okay? Because Christianity offers a sort of like bandage over the wound situation. It doesn't really deal with the wound, it doesn't really deal with the root causes of the wound. It's just sort of like slap this bandage over it, forgive and forget those who hurt you, and move on with your life. But the problem is that if you grew up in an abusive home and you experience toxic behavior for like 15 years, 20 years, you can't just slap a bandage over that wound. You've got to get to the root of it. You've got to excavate that wound. You've got to treat it, nurture it, sew it up, do whatever you need to do. And then you have to dress the wound, clean the wound as often as you need to until that wound is properly healed, okay, and it's covered up. So you see that scar reminds you of what you went through, but the wound is no longer gaping and open and filled with pus and all this disgusting stuff, right? So for me, I found that a lot of my former pastors and even some of my former Christian friends would be like, oh, your abusive parent, they didn't know any better. They didn't know any better. Just forgive them. We'll be praying for them. And this is another reason why I don't believe God exists, because I'm like, this person has been the same and they've actually gotten progressively worse for as long as I've known them. And yet the Holy Spirit is supposed to be what? Sanctifying people, changing believers. How come this person has not changed? How come this person has gotten worse? That's why for me, leaving really helped me come to terms with the fact that my abuser was abusive because they wanted to be that way and not for any other reason. It wasn't the devil, it wasn't Lucifer, it wasn't Satan, it wasn't a demonic spirit. That is how they want to be. That is how they're choosing to be. Another thing that helped me heal my inner child is that I revisited childhood memories that were both good and bad. And again, walking through those memories helped me release them. I saw all the times that I was beaten and insulted for things that I didn't do just because my abusive parent got a kick out of humiliating me. And I was like, all right, girl, I see you. You survived that. You don't have to live in that life anymore. You can now release this memory and we can move on. And the final thing that I'm going to say is that I also addressed my patterns, my harmful and toxic patterns, okay? And two that stood out the most to me was one, the men I dated, and two, the friends that I allowed to stay in my life, even though they had betrayed me multiple times, okay? I stopped dating horrible men. I stopped befriending horrible people. I stopped allowing horrible men and horrible people have access to me. I started to work on my boundaries and I started to create very strict rules to protect me and ensure that the people in my life respected my decisions and didn't try to force or coerce me into doing something that I didn't want to do. Let me actually add two more things that helped me heal my inner girl child. The first one was I stopped abandoning myself, and that looked like quitting my people-pleasing ways, right? So if I did something that I didn't want to do, or I stayed in a situation that was clearly very harmful to me, that was a form of abandonment, right? I've gotten so much better at saying, no, I don't want to do that. I've gotten better at leaving. I have walked away from situations. I've walked away from client gigs simply because I'm like, I don't like being spoken to like that. You're not respecting my boundaries. You're not listening to me, right? This protects me. Now, there are people that will say things like, oh, you're leaving money on the table. It's never that deep. That's them. This is me. I know the things that I'm susceptible to. And it's important for me that I know how to protect myself and ensure that I'm not leaving myself behind just because I want to make another person feel comfortable. And then the other thing, which I really love and I highly recommend, is that I wrote down a list of things that I love about myself. Some of those things are superficial. I love my lips. I love the shape of my eyes. I love my cheekbones. I love my hair in its natural state. I love my collarbone, okay? I love the way my body looks. I love my bum. I like to touch myself, okay? I am fully connected to my body, okay? I love how I feel when I am myself, okay? I'm embracing all sides of myself, my sensual self, my serious self, my goofy side, my fun side, right? I love the way I dance as well because I can bust a move, all right? Now, anytime I'm feeling down or I'm dealing with self-esteem issues, or if anything crops up, I open that list, it's on my phone, and I read it, and I'm like, remind yourself of what you love about yourself. Remind yourself that you're smart, that you're intelligent, that you're capable. And not only that, you are strong as fuck. You endured a very difficult childhood. A lot of people would not have survived what I survived. And not only did I come out shining, beautiful, smarter, better for it, not only that, also, I can look the people that abuse me in the eye and tell them, you do not mean anything to me. I don't care about you. I don't love you. You no longer have any power over me. And let me tell you something, that is one of the most freeing things ever. So for the girls who need to work on their inner child, please do it. It is worth it. Even if the only thing you start with is acknowledging that what happened to you was not your fault and you deserved love, care, and respect from the people that brought you into this world. Until the next episode, thank you for watching. I love you. Mwah.